Welcome to Our World, Our Power radio show. Another week with Lady Pauline and our honorable co-host, Mr. Glenn Greenwich, the Honorable Mayor of Sutton Boulevard. It's nice to have you on our show and welcome. Love having you as my partner.
All right.
Oh, please don't go nowhere.
All right. Absolutely. And today we have some fantastic guests. I want to introduce Miss Elizabeth Blaney and Sawalah Kesslley. They're going to be talking to you about the proposed Southeast Queens Federal Credit Union. And why it's proposed is because it's being established. So we're going to talk a little bit about why a credit union and why in Southeast Queens. Welcome to the show.
Welcome to the show.
Thank you for having us.
Oh, yeah. Absolutely. So let's get started. Why a credit union? Because I don't know that everybody understands the difference between a credit union and a regular bank. So would you give us a little background about why a credit union?
A credit union is so important for our community, especially the Southeast Queens community. I don't know if you remember as much as I do when there were banks along Linden Boulevard, banks almost in every part of our on every commercial corridor in our community. They've since disappeared, and what we have instead are check cashing facilities.
Yes.
Okay.
Places where people can go and spend an exorbitant amount of money in just fees to cash checks. And that's just a small part of the issue. Even when you have an established bank account, there's still a big difference between a credit union and a bank account. For example, if you have an account with, let's say, Citibank, you're just a customer. If you have an account with a credit union, you are an owner. You are a member of that credit union. You get to participate in decisions made about how your money is spent, about the dividends that are generated by the way your money is used by that institution. So there are lots of really good reasons for us to have credit unions. We look at our businesses, the small businesses in our community, and we are concerned that we see so many of our commercial corridors with abandoned and vacant shops. And we believe that a credit union working with small businesses in our community would be very supportive to those businesses and helpful, and might even serve as a way to establish even better business opportunities for our community, services that we could use and services that we need that we don't now have.
Could you tell the audience what made you come up with this idea?
Well, I think for many people, we know that Southeast Queens was considered the epicenter of the predatory lending crisis. And we know that our communities are often targeted for destabilization. And what better way to destabilize a neighborhood than to attack the homeowners in that neighborhood? And so some of our members, including Sawalah here, were so affected by that crisis, and even properties that belong to some of the members of the steering committee, those of us who decided to come together to see what we could do about the crises occurring in our community. We saw a need for a credit union. We saw a need to be able to counter the kinds of attacks that were coming at us from the lending institutions, from the mortgage businesses that had been set up to essentially rob our homeowners of their property. And I know that Sawalah can expand on that.
Yeah, can you please expand?
I was a good neighbor in Southeast Queens until 2008 when the financial crisis hit. Like Liz said, even prior to 2008, there was an article in the New York Times that essentially said that Southeast Queens had one of the highest per capita income of any neighborhood in the United States, both black and white.
Yes, I've heard that, yes.
Right after the article came out, the community was targeted with subprime lending and all kinds of unscrupulous loan programs. And that whole thing culminated into 2008 when the financial crisis hit. And then all of a sudden, all hell broke loose. We became targeted. And from my own experience, I run a not-for-profit organization in Southeast Queens, and we have been in that building since 2003. My wife actually bought the building for the use by the organization to help young people. And so when 2008 came, the mortgage went from one bank to another, and then it ended up with City Mortgage. Right after City Mortgage took over, they came and told us that our escrow was in deficit. Mind you, if you have been paying your escrow, your monthly mortgage on time, it shouldn't be in deficit. Because of that, they increased our mortgage from $2,400 to $3,100. That's 30% increase on a fixed rate mortgage. If it's a fixed rate, it shouldn't fluctuate.
Right.
Yeah.
Correct.
Come to find out, I have a little background in finance and accounting. I did some research. When Citibank took over the mortgage, the other bank told them that the escrow account will be transferred in between 3 to 6 months. And it was actually done. Therefore, there was no need for Citibank to have come to all of us who they have mortgage with and charged us 30% in terms of our escrow account. So some of us were afraid, like many other homeowners. So we pay up. The next thing we looked, Citibank came and said they were going to foreclose on us. And so we challenged Citibank. And after doing the homework, we realized that first Citibank didn't own the note. It didn't own the mortgage. And during the process of all of these mortgages being packaged, they packaged the mortgages and wanted to sold them to the secondary markets. But the corresponding documents were never transferred with them. And so Citibank had none of those documents. So after we challenged Citibank, they withdrew the case the first time, and they went back and manufactured documents, and actually forged documents. You had two persons that signed. One of them signed for the mortgage, one of them signed for the note. The one that signed for the note was actually a robo signer who claimed allegedly vice president of 9 different banks. Then we contacted the young lady who signed on the note. This young lady actually admitted to us that she had never worked for this bank before. And we asked her, could you testify? She said, no, only under a subpoena. And so all the documents were forged. We've been in court now since 12 years. Citibank has yet to win the case.
And what has happened to the residences of and their property?
Businesses have been closed down. A lot of people have lost their homes, including members of the steering committee. Even up to this point, people are still reeling from that foreclosure crisis. And in fact, the situation is even exacerbated for older people. Some of them do not have will. And once they pass away, there is a democratic machine in this Queens County. There's a law firm that actually handles all of those things. And that law firm comes after those senior citizens, relatives, and actually steal the properties. By the time they get through the litigation, there is nothing left to be quit to the family of those people that pass away.
So this is willfully done. This is intentional.
It's not by accident. And like I said before, interestingly, the people who are behind this whole effort is the Queens Democratic Machine. There's a famous law firm that is behind this here. Liz, you remember the name of the law firm again?
I don't remember.
Yeah, it will come to mind. But this is a very powerful law firm. But that law firm also has its members as leaders of the Queens Democratic Machine. And the Queens Supreme Court is one of the most corrupt. It actually rubber stamps everything that the banks do. And these people are the ones that are behind the theft of the property. So when these things happen, some of us got together and said, you don't need to sit down and just watch it happen. Something has to be done. And so this is how the whole concept of the credit union was born.
And so just for our listeners to get real clear, so one of the primary things for a credit union is education, financial education, so people can't come and just take your property and act like it's legal. So a credit union is, as we said, for educational, financial literacy is one of the things. Now, what's the caption area for the proposed Southeast Queens Federal Credit Union? What are the boundaries?
It encompasses community boards 12, 13, and 14. And those areas include Rochdale, Rosedale, Laurenton, Springfield Garden, Far Rockaway. It covers the area from the border of Long Island all the way to the border of Queens here, around, how you call the place again? Hillside Avenue.
Hillside Avenue.
Yeah, Van Wyck and all of that, and then Cross Island, and then Softon States.
So it's a widespread.
It's about 600,000, yes.
It's very large.
Residents,
area.
yeah.
And that's why it's federal as opposed to, that's why it's got the federal name in it? Is that because it's got such a big area?
No, there are different types of credit unions. You have community-based credit unions, you have professional-based credit union, you have company-based credit union. Take for instance, you have the municipal credit union. All of those who work for the municipal government, they are part of that credit union.
Right.
But ours is a community-based, is geographically based, and that's how come it's called the Southeast Queens Federal Credit Union.
And what do you have to be a member of this community?
Liz can address that.
The criteria for membership in this community, in this large community that we've just described, is to live in the community, work in the community, worship in the community, go to school in the community, or do business in the community. So the opportunity to be a part of it is really large. It's inclusive, as opposed to some of the other credit unions which limit membership based on profession, based on your being a teacher or a police officer or a member of a congregation. We sought to include as much of the community as possible to accomplish the kinds of things that we think are important, especially financial literacy, especially since we have so many youngsters who go off to college and come back with large student debt, large student loans, not really understanding that for many of them, they were targeted too, because some of the larger banks worked with the financial aid counselors in the colleges, took them to trips in Jamaica and other places, all to encourage them to provide loans to college students and make those loans pretty easy. Youngsters don't know that 6 months after they leave college, whether with a degree or not, those loans become due and payable. They are never forgiven. They last for a lifetime. And so there's all this talk about forgiving student loans, which a lot of people
is it true?
No, it's not true. But there's a lot of interest on the part of people who are now running for public office. They're talking about forgiving student loans.
Because I hear they keep mentioning it.
Yes. And it would be wonderful for a lot of families, and especially those people who have pursued graduate degrees in law or in medicine or in other professions. They come out owing so much money that by the time they're ready to purchase a home or even to buy a car or to rent an apartment, they're in debt. So it would be a good thing if we can begin to educate our young people about debt, about financing, about even saving.
So is that going to be a part of the credit union's duties to educate?
We've already started doing that. We don't need a charter to do financial literacy. And we've had a lot of speakers come in and talk about insurance, about planning, about debt consolidation. And credit. Just understanding, all that's involved. And the community has been very receptive to the idea, recognizing that it's one of the areas where we are the least knowledgeable, and by design.
Because it's not something that's really taught in school.
That's absolutely correct. Absolutely.
One of the things that when we think about a credit union, we think about collective economics and bringing together a community to help manage itself or support the businesses in this area. I know you guys have talked a little bit about certain kinds of businesses that you would like to fund. A car dealership was one of the conversations, because
supermarkets,
a supermarket, because
insurance companies,
exactly. So those are the things that don't necessarily bear our name or have our interests in mind, but certainly something that could be done inside of the context of a credit union.
Absolutely.
We don't even have a department store.
Yes.
We don't have anything like a Macy's or a JCPenney or anything like that.
That comes anywhere close.
No.
But I think it's also understanding how collectively, coming together, not as individuals, but as a group of people, how we can pool our resources, how we can collateralize some of these kinds of expenses that we couldn't do individually, but that we can do together, that will benefit the entire community.
What is your take on everything that's going on in downtown Jamaica area now, with all these new businesses coming in and all the high rises going up? What's your take?
Well, the first thing I think of is and this is probably the least of the concern amongst the planners, but we got a lot of hotels coming into our community. And we know historically that the hotels are not necessarily there to house tourists, that they're sometimes there
For shelters.
For shelters. And that's a real concern because people need housing. They need permanent, affordable housing. And when we see these facilities coming in, we look at ultimately where the money is going and to whom. And all the money that is paid to house people who are homeless, if that money could be channeled differently. And I know there's some restrictions on how that money can be spent, based on where it comes from. But at the same time, there's no reason why that can't be rethought and regrouped so that we would have hotels that serve purposes of hotels.
Now, what would be your style of operation if you wanted to set something like that up? How would you go about it? Getting all these affordable housing started, and because the hotel business now, as I said, has been going into the shelter business, is half and half. In order to avoid the shelter, how would we really afford affordable housing? Because what they're saying now, that these high rises, affordable housing, maybe 3 or 4 apartments in the whole complex is geared to affordable housing, and everything else is $2,000 and up. How does the credit union focus on that?
The rents that are set by the what's it called?
The federal government is the AMI.
Yes, the
Right.
median income for our area. It includes areas that go way beyond our neighborhood, so that by the time you come up with a median income, it makes the income in our area a lot higher and a lot more than people actually can afford. And especially when you're looking at the working group, we still have a large number of people who are service employees. They work in retail or in restaurants, and they don't make a lot of money.
No, they don't.
But when their income gets factored in, it's that federal guideline that is set. And that's really a job for the legislature, to kind of look at that median income and how it's configured so that it becomes more fair. But right now, I wouldn't call it fair. I would call it a bit exorbitant. It goes way beyond the means of some of our people who are really in desperate need of housing.
I think one of the things that we always talk about in terms of financing is if we own the property in our community, then we can then dictate what comes into it, and we can actually create affordable housing for ourselves. So I think the premise of the credit union is really, again, back to that collective economics and being able to invest in things that the community wants, because we're a community-based conversation. Mm-hmm. One of the other things I want to talk about is the fact that there's the banks have a Community Reinvestment Act, and the big banks have not been doing due diligence for Southeast Queens community. Black and brown communities are not getting that money, that investment, even though they have billions of dollars on account in all of the major banks. And so the credit union is an opportunity to be able to have that money actually reinvested in the community, because again, there's people from the community who have an interest in the community who are looking to build up the community and not tear it down. So it creates a different focus for the whole financial conversation.
And in addition, even those banks, those existing banks, could get credit from the Community Reinvestment Act if they deposited some of those funds into the credit union.
True.
Then they become, more in compliance with CRA than they are now.
Yeah.
But they are able, even now, I believe the percentage of banks that are in compliance with CRA right now is about 98%. So it's a very small percentage of banks that are out of compliance. And they are easily able to be in compliance. And I say that because I sit on the board of Neighborhood Housing Services of Jamaica. Mm-hmm. And around our table, we have at least 3 banks represented on that board. And they make contributions every year to Neighborhood Housing Services of Jamaica. And I think if Citibank, for example, can do a ribbon cutting ceremony with a big check made payable to the community, that goes a long way to satisfy the requirement of CRA, because they can then say we're putting money back into the community based on the work that Neighborhood Housing Services provides to that community. But when you balance that out, looking at the huge sums of money that come from our neighborhood, they go to that bank, it's a very small piece that the community gets back, And the credit union would be able to give more to the community just in terms of lower rates, lower interest rates, higher interest rates on your deposits, but lower rates on your fees. So that as a member of a credit union, when I put my money in the bank, I'm going to make more money on it. When I go to borrow money from that same credit union, I'm going to pay less for that loan.
I like your terminology when you say a member. Mm-hmm. It makes me feel at home.
Yeah.
As opposed to a number.
And that's the whole idea. It's a community institution. It belongs to the community. It belongs to the members of that community.
And what would be the qualifications, say somebody wanted to be a part of the credit union? How would they go about it?
Well, right now we have people who are interested in becoming a part of this process that we're in right now, which is the planning process. It's the staging process for the credit union. And we call those people subscribers. We meet once a month, the second Saturday of every month, where people come and take part in whatever the discussion is. And the discussions lately have been around fundraising, because that's key to our ability to become chartered by the federal government. But also to participate in our financial literacy classes, to learn more about credit unions and how they are established, to learn more about the role that they can play and the requirements that they have to meet in order to play a role, whether they want to serve on the board of directors or as officers, or to be a part of the process of getting our credit union established in Southeast Queens.
Now let me put it this way, your educational piece, mm-hmm. All right, shouldn't young people really get involved with that before they look to buy a house or a co-op or a condominium, but they don't really have that type of knowledge?
Unfortunately, we don't see a lot of opportunity for young people to learn right now about all that is required and what their responsibilities. There's some not-for-profits out there. As I mentioned earlier, Neighborhood Housing Services provides training and education for potential homeowners. They walk them through the process. They tell them what it is they need to have in order to become a homeowner. You learn about debt consolidation. You learn about how important it is to have sufficient monies to pay your utilities, your mortgage, and just the maintenance. Because when you buy a house, you're responsible for the maintenance. A lot of us coming from apartments, you pick up the phone and you call
the maintenance department.
It breaks down, but when you own it, you have to fix it. So it's necessary to plan ahead, at least to have some idea, as you proceed to become a homeowner, of the responsibilities of homeownership.
So a lot of people, you would say, rush into buying a house.
A lot do.
And they don't have no backup. So like when things start falling apart, the boiler, the roof, and all this stuff.
Understandably, a lot of people, when you buy a home, you expect that at least for the first 5 years, the boiler's not going to break down. The roof's not going to cave in. The plumbing is not going to give way. But given the kinds of people who are selling houses,
right? Yes.
You don't know what you're going to get.
Okay.
So and that really points to the importance of this financial literacy.
Absolutely.
I mean, you've got to have the fundamentals, as you said, the savings.
Yes.
Understand how to save. Understand how to consolidate your debt. Which bills that you need to pay off first, because they've got the highest interest.
Right.
And so you want to reduce those.
Yes.
And something as simple as when you do pay additional money, you pay it to the principal. And not the interest,
Yeah.
so that you knock off what is generating the interest for you.
Yes.
So and these are very basic things, but if you don't know them and don't understand the impact, then it influences your finances negatively.
And so many families are caught in that situation where they went in, to become homeowners with the excitement and expectation, only to learn, because you don't know what's going to happen down the line. You get sick, you can lose your job.
Yes.
All these kinds of things can happen.
So where is the cushion? What is the solution? Because those things do happen.
They do happen, and to the best of anybody's ability, preparation.
Okay. Can you go into a little bit more about what the preparation would include?
Well, just knowing, for example, that when I buy this home, how much money will I need to have in the bank? How many months of income should I have saved in the event of an emergency? 3 months, 6 months. Now, if you have no idea to even anticipate that, and a lot of young people, I'm healthy, I'm strong, nothing's ever going to happen to me. But if you're in a situation where you're about to buy a house and you are specifically told, these are the kinds of things you need to prepare for. This is what you should anticipate. Even if you don't see or foresee this happening, be aware of this. Make sure you can set aside this much money on a regular basis so that you can meet whatever that need is as it comes at you, if it comes at you.
So you're really talking about financial planning.
Absolutely.
Just understanding the basics.
And that's a part of financial literacy. Mm-hmm. It absolutely is.
Well, I remember when I was a kid growing up, it was older people that bought houses. It wasn't people like in their 20s and 30s. People were like in their late 40s and so forth. Does it still make a difference?
I don't know. It seems that in recognition of all that's changing now and looking at our young people, a lot of youngsters don't want the responsibility of buying a house. A lot of youngsters want a loft, So you have to take all of that into consideration while you're looking ahead. But there are still those youngsters in our community who are the pillars and who do want to settle down. And I would say that they are probably in their 40s. Close to 40, I think the younger group, are still not ready. This is my observation. This is not scientific at all. I think a lot of them, and then a lot more youngsters are staying at home. They're not leaving the nest.
What do you think about that?
Oh, I got a few homeless people at my house.
Oh my goodness.
But the thing is, if we copy from other cultures where people come, they share space together, and they sacrifice until the next one can come up with enough money for a down payment, so that you may have a lot of people in a household for a small amount of time. Over time they can move out and have their own.
Yeah, I remember I moved out when I was 20 years old, to a 1-bedroom right across the street from Yankee Stadium, and my rent was $137 for 1 bedroom. And yeah, for real.
You can't even get a closet for that now.
For sure.
So you're talking about 40-something years different, and the cost of living is $2,000, and so that same apartment is now $2,000 and something dollars. So you can't blame young people for not wanting to move out or can't move out.
That's right. That's really true. Yeah. Because it's just that expensive.
So you really do need the education piece.
And we really do need more affordable housing.
Yeah,
for sure. We really do.
And again, I keep saying it, but collective economics. I mean, that's...
What does that really... I know you keep saying that all the time. What does that really mean, and what is it endeavor?
Well, when you begin to look... So you take a community, and I use this example quite a bit. So in the Jewish community, when $1 is earned, it rotates 11 times before it leaves the community. That means that there are 11 businesses that are getting touched before that money leaves the community. In our community, we're lucky if it gets 1 rotation before it leaves the community. So what does that mean? That means that we're missing out on businesses being supported by our community. Jobs for young people are not being made available, because if you don't own the business, you can't hire people from the community. You probably don't own the buildings that are in our community. And so again, all of this is by going 11 times, you're now enabling people in that community to be able to buy property, to own the property in their neighborhoods, to select and direct the kinds of businesses that come into the community, so that you don't have your McDonald's and Dunkin' Donuts, and not that they're bad businesses, but they're not necessarily healthy. So they're not supporting my community in building up themselves and being strong and healthy, so that we can go out and make the money and bring the money back into the community.
Now, what happens when you live in a mixed community? With other nationalities, it's not just, predominantly a black or white or Hispanic. When you have the whole combination of everybody.
It still goes back to the community.
Okay.
Who of those people do they own the property? Do they have businesses in that particular community? See, one of the things when you look at from a regional standpoint, you can begin to see how communities can grow and bring other communities into their community to buy goods, to buy services, to buy food, come to the restaurants, have entertainment. So when that particular community and again, we're talking about Southeast Queens, which is a diverse community.
Yes,
we've got Africans, we've got African Americans, we've got the Caribbean folks, we've got a whole bunch of folks that are energetic and are interested in owning their own buildings and owning their own businesses, right, and servicing their community. But again, getting back to the finances of it, if you don't have the finances in order, you're not able to then control and to help build up your community. So it's not so much that it has to be a Jewish community or a black community or a white community, but that community working together. And a federal credit union gives you that bringing together of thoughts and ideas. And, we sit back and we say, well, what does our community need? Well, how come we don't have any car dealerships that are black or brown owned? What would that difference make? Well, that difference would make is that young people would now be able to get cars a little easier. You now got the Uber and Lyft and whatnot, yes, sure, and you need a newer car to have that. So that now our young people now have access to opportunities that they might not get from the big banks. So the Federal Credit Union begins to be able to deliver on that collective economics.
Now, I want to ask both of you, do you see a lot of young people coming to your meetings, for them to get this knowledge? Because a lot of times I go to, different informative programs, and I see people of my age group. I don't see young people that needs that type of information so that they can grow mentally and expand for the community. Do you see that when you have the meetings that you have for the credit company? Is there more older people than younger people?
We have younger people who are beginning to hear the message,
okay,
who are participating. We have a young woman who is very active in our community, and she's our gateway, you might say, to that younger population that we are looking to attract. But there are a number of young people, not a lot, but we're glad for the ones who are there.
Okay.
And we're hopeful that they are going to bring others in with them. But we're making an all-out effort to bring in as many young people as possible, because you're right. It's the young people who are going to make the difference.
Yes.
Absolutely.
I'd like to take a moment. We're going to take a station break, and we'll be right back.
We'll be right back. But first, are you a small business owner looking for solutions? TMI and Partners is a business solution company offering operational, branding, and financial solution. For only $9.99 a month, your company will be assigned a personal business advisor. Well, that's right, only $9.99 per month, no contract, and you're on your way. Call TMI at 347-234-5304. That's 347-234-5304. Or visit their website at tmium.com. Tomorrow, the world will know your business. Is that it, guys? Hello? Did I do good?
We're going to start back up. I will also at this point would like to thank our sponsor, the law firm of Stephen G. James and Associates. He's located at 97-66 Sutton Boulevard here in Jamaica. And his number is 646-905-9000. And he's the lawyer that you can trust. And he hasn't lost a case in over 30 years. And if you need an attorney, please check out the law firm of Stephen G. James and Associates. And I also would like to take the time to say that our world is heard on several platforms. One of them is the Caribbean Buzz TV and radio, Spotify, iTunes, Google Play, TuneIn, and also follow us on Instagram and Facebook, and also our Facebook page for Our World Media. Okay, so
we're also on Roku.
Oh yes, go ahead.
Apple TV.
Yes, and how can people follow you if they need to follow you? Our Honorable Mayor of Sutton Boulevard.
Well, you can always get me at the Sutton Boulevard Business Improvement District, 718-291-2110.
Oh, that's great, because people be asking about you all the time, you know. Mm-hmm. And also tell me, how can people reach you as far as the credit card union? Credit union is concerned. Credit card. Why is that on my mind?
But it has to do with the finance.
Finance, yes.
And managing your credit and credit cards are an important part of that financial literacy. So, well, I mean, it is all related.
Yeah, that's
absolutely. You can reach the credit union at 718-210-3201.
Okay. And do you have a Facebook page yet? Instagram?
We have a Facebook page. It's called the Proposed Southeast Queens Federal Credit Union. And you can check us out on that page as well. You'll find information about upcoming meetings, fundraising activities, and any special event that we are producing at the time.
Well, tell them a little about some of the fundraisers that you've had, because you've had some at Black Spectrum, you've had different parties and so forth.
I wasn't invited.
See? We have to do better next time. We've done a number of theater parties at Black Spectrum where we have provided our friends and neighbors with dinner. It's called the theater dinner party.
Okay. Where
food is served just about an hour or so before whatever the event is, usually a play. Mm-hmm. And people have really enjoyed them because it's so rare to be able to go to the theater, have dinner, park your car for free, and not be out of a couple of $100. If you try to go and see a play on Broadway,
forget about it.
You spend a lot of money.
Yes.
But you know, the great news for us is that we have this community theater right in the heart of our own community, you know, by us, for us.
Yes.
You know, so it's sort of a win-win kind of situation when we can support that effort and at the same time support ours. And it's been a good partnership we've had with Black Spectrum over the last few years, where we've done at least once a year dinner theater. We've also done, we did a African film festival.
Yeah.
We talked about
the lessons of Haiti.
The lessons of Haiti. And we've also
did a street fair. Did a couple of street fairs.
Yes, barbecues.
Mm-hmm.
You know, we've done a lot of things, you know, to raise money to get this credit union up and running.
So let folks know. So where are you in the process? How close are you to getting chartered, and how can people support that?
Mr. Kesslley, why don't you?
That's fine. I've let Liz do a lot of the talking. Liz has been around this community for over 50 years. She knows this place very well. She's been a deputy public advocate.
Yes.
And sat on numerous boards. So for some of us who are newcomers here, we ride on her shoulders. So she knows this place more than a lot of us. But let's talk about the fundraising. We set up to raise about $100,000 from the community. And thus far we've raised around $92,000, almost $100,000. And this has come in forms of a donation. In fact, Liz herself has committed over, I think, $4,000 or $5,000 now? Yes, personally. Not pledged, but paid. And others have done the same thing too. And so people in the community have been generous. We've managed to raise $2,000, and actually it's going to be $100,000. What we hope to do with that money is to leverage it to raise corporate dollars now, dollars for foundations, from corporations. We have one corporation that actually gave us money, that's the National Standard Abstract. He gave us actually $13,000. We have a number of churches around the community to Full Gospel, Presbyterian Church of Jamaica.
Right.
You have St. Albans Congregational Church. So these churches have also given. And so the goal here is to raise $300,000. And even as we speak, there is somebody in the waiting who is committing to give us $100,000, but they want to leverage that money to raise matching money, matching grant. So we are appealing to our people to contribute. If you contribute, there is somebody that is prepared to match your dollar for dollar, up to $100,000. So if we can get a community to give another $100,000, we can actually reach the $300,000 mark this year. When it comes to the charter document was submitted since April of last year, and everything is fine. All they have said to us is that we need to see the money. Mm-hmm. So if we can raise the rest of the money this year, the charter can be in, and we can have our doors open this year. But let's go back to some of the issues that you raised before with respect to ownership. You talk about collective economics. Mm-hmm. Going to the Jewish community, you have a temple here, and everything around that temple, everything businesses around revolve around that temple. You will not see two pizza shops of the same kind in the same village. Right. You will not see two supermarkets in the same village. And as soon as they outgrow that village, they open another village again. So, but everything in that village is owned by them. So therefore, the money can circulate 11 times before it goes out. In our community, there's very little we own. You may see a beauty shop. You may see a
barber shop.
Yeah. You may see a bunch of churches.
A nail salon.
Even most of the nail salons are not owned by us.
Right.
So it boils down to ownership. What this credit union will do is that it will provide us the opportunity to own our own businesses in the community. Now, a lot of people come to the community that have businesses here, but they don't live here. So they make the money, and the money leaves the community, including the banks.
Yes.
But if and when we own our own financial institution, it will do a number of things. First, it will spur economic development and growth. Economic development means that we have the infrastructure in our neighborhood here to make the money and then to grow that money. But right now, as it is, we don't own the car dealership. We don't own the supermarkets. We don't own the bodegas. We don't own the shop. You name it.
You don't own it.
Nothing.
No.
And the things that we own, the homes, are even been stolen away from us. So this credit union is going to do a number of things. First, it will create this economic development and growth. Second, it will educate our people as to the need to make their money work for them, as always opposed to working for their money. We spend our lives working for our money, and by the time you can no longer work, you become homeless.
Yes, it's a wrap.
Yeah.
Yes. And oftentimes, even the businesses that we have, the local business that we have, they don't own the buildings. So therefore, by the time you begin to make little money, the building owner increases the rent, and therefore you have to pack up and leave. If you look at our commercial corridors, most of the stores that are empty. And that doesn't inspire confidence in people to want to come open businesses here. So this credit union, we believe, will make a marked difference once it is chartered. And that's how we're appealing to all of our people to help us raise the money. We are close to the finish line. We need another, we've raised about $100,000, we need another $200,000. And somebody is saying to us, if you can find people to raise the additional $100,000, they will match your dollar for dollar. So the challenge is out there, and let's pray that it can happen.
And if you go to Facebook, to that Southeast Queens Federal Credit Union page, there's a donate button where you can donate right there online.
And then the website is also the www.sqfcu.org. You can go out there and donate to, and it will give you additional information about, the fundraising efforts.
And they've got brochures, and you've got lots of information about why credit union is beneficial. And what you're hearing is to be able to stabilize a community.
Yes.
The Federal Credit Union, the proposed Southeast Queens Federal Credit Union, would help to stabilize some of the blight that appears, the foreclosure that's happening in our community. Again, a lot of the foreclosure is because people are scared to talk about it. The proposed Federal Credit Union will be an outlet to be able to have those conversations and prepare plans for people to keep their homes.
Yes.
So again, we're talking about a shift in ownership, a shift in being accountable financially to ourselves, to our community, and then to begin to build legacy wealth, which is our inheritance. We have that as an opportunity, and the proposed federal Southeast Queens Credit Union can begin to be the rallying point around that conversation for the Southeast Queens community. So the meetings are at 111-20 Farmers Boulevard on the second Saturday of the month. The meeting starts from 9:30 to 12, and you need to come out and check out what's happening and be part of a conversation that is changing Southeast Queens. It's got the potential to change the world, yes, all of our communities. Because if we replicate this kind of a conversation, we then begin to take ownership of our community and dictate how our finances are going to create the wealth in our community.
Absolutely.
I thank you both for being on Our World, Our Power. I hope the audience got a lot of information, because that's what we're about, where your news reflects you and your community. You've been listening to Our World with Lady Pauline and the Honorable Mayor of Southern Boulevard, Mr. Glenn Greenwich. Catch you all next week.
Peace and blessings.